Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Charlene Aaron. Today, economists are warning Americans are facing a cost of living crisis. This as food, gas, and housing costs continue to rise. We'll have more plus coming up. Making Aliyah, thousands of Ethiopian Jews are now joining their families in Israel.
My grandfather made Aliyah to Israel 11 years ago. My parents and my brother went 2 years ago. My wife is very happy we are going, and she wants to raise our children as Jews.
It's hard to describe in words. I feel like it's a dream. I'm very, very blessed.
We'll take a closer look at this grand reunion. Then later, we sit down with New York Mets outfielder Brandon Nimmo. He talks about his faith and how it positively affects him on the field.
Understanding just how blessed I am to be in this position, it helps me to play with enthusiasm, to have a lot of fun.
All these stories and more are coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
And we begin this half hour with economists warning that Americans are facing a cost of living crisis. This after yesterday's inflation numbers show the highest rate in 40 years. And now the Federal Reserve is expected to take a more aggressive approach. CBN's Brody Carter has more in our top story.
September's inflation numbers show the cost of food, gas, shelter, and medical costs are all on the rise.
At the highest level in 40 years is a sign that inflation is becoming entrenched in our economy.
The government's consumer price index rose at an annual rate of 8.2%, with mortgage rates hitting a 20-year high. The cost of major food items nearly 16% higher than this time last year. Mark Hamrick with Bankrate.com says high inflation means even higher interest rates are coming.
The Federal Reserve is almost exclusively focused right now on trying to get inflation under control, having raised interest rates 5 times already this year. The last 3 really huge increases of 75 basis points or 0.75%. Their next meeting, November 2nd, will expect another big increase, probably another increase at year end, and possibly yet another one early in 2023.
Thursday's report is the final reading before next month's midterm elections. With inflation and the economy being the top issues for voters, it could have major implications as both parties battle for control of Congress. The president acknowledging the pain of higher prices.
Americans are squeezed by the cost of living. It's been true for years, and folks don't need a report to tell them they're being squeezed.
Democrats are on the defensive over higher prices because the major problem with inflation, while consumer wages are also going up, they're not keeping up with rising prices. So American standard of living is going down.
It's hard. It's very hard.
Social Security is hoping to ease the burden by giving some 70 million senior citizens an 8.7% increase next year. That's just over $100 and the biggest in 40 years. But some recipients worry whether it will be enough to cover rising costs.
We don't get enough money where we can keep up with putting gas in the car.
The report initially rattled financial markets, with stocks plunging at first after the inflation report, but those losses reversed, and the Dow Jones closed up by more than 800 points. But the economic outlook over the next year is troublesome. The World Bank warns we're on the cusp of a potential global recession.
Growth rate, we've lowered our 2023 growth forecast from 3% to 1.9% for global growth. That's dangerously close to a world recession, and that's a world recession could happen under certain circumstances.
Brody Carter, CBN News.
The January 6th Select Committee took a historic step on Thursday, voting unanimously 9-0 to subpoena former President Donald Trump. Likely wrapping up its public hearings, the panel outlined former President Trump's role in the breach at the U.S. Capitol, laying out the case that Donald Trump had a premeditated plan to declare victory in the 2020 election, win or lose.
President Trump knew from unassailable sources that his election fraud claims were false. He admitted he had lost the election.
What he's going to do is just declare victory, right? He's going to declare victory. But that doesn't mean he's the winner. He's just going to say he's the winner. If Biden's winning, Trump is going to do some crazy shit. I said, Lord, and let's get right to the violence. That's what I'm saying. It's no fault. I'm start smashing pumpkins, if you know what I mean.
The closing statements in the committee's hearing summarized the House panel's charge the former president was directly involved in a bid to overturn the 2020 election. The Biden administration is moving to curb the growing number of Venezuelans crossing the southern border. This new policy would allow qualifying Venezuelans to travel legally by air to the United States, while those crossing illegally are to be apprehended and sent back to Mexico. Our CBN News White House correspondent Abigail Robertson has more.
This year, there has been nearly 4 times the number of Venezuelans caught crossing the southern border than last. The administration hopes this move will bring these numbers down and create a more orderly process.
Yo voy a Florida. Vamos a trabajar para...
The new program aims to bypass the border by allowing up to 24,000 Venezuelans to fly directly into an interior port of entry.
Those who follow the lawful process we announced yesterday will have the opportunity to travel safely to the United States and become eligible to work here.
Migrants who qualify will go through security screenings, complete health requirements such as vaccinations, and must have a U.S. sponsor to provide financial support.
This advances the Biden administration's pledge under the Los Angeles Declaration for Migration and Protection to expand legal pathways as an alternative to irregular and dangerous migration.
In 2022, U.S. arrests along the border topped more than 2 million for the first time. While campaigning for GOP Senate candidate Herschel Walker, Senator Tom Cotton used the issue against Walker's opponent and the administration.
Raphael Warnock has voted with Joe Biden to keep our border wide open.
And there are new developments on the White House response to photos that surfaced a year ago, appearing to show Border Patrol agents whipping migrants. Through a Freedom of Information request, the Heritage Foundation found that Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas learned via email the photographer believed the incident was being misconstrued, and he never witnessed any whipping. Yet 2 hours later, Mayorkas claimed this.
We, our entire nation, saw horrifying images that do not reflect who we are. We know that those images painfully conjured up the worst elements of our nation's ongoing battle against systemic racism.
With border crossings at an all-time high, even Democratic representatives of border towns are calling on President Biden and Vice President Harris to visit, as Republicans continue making immigration a key campaign issue. Reporting from Washington, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abby. An official at Vanderbilt University Medical Center announced a pause in transgender surgeries for minors in a letter to Tennessee State Representative Jason Zachary. Deputy CEO C. Wright Pinson wrote, "We are pausing gender affirmation surgeries on patients under 18 while we complete this review, which may take several months." The letter also states that VUMC allows employees to request exemptions from surgeries or procedures that they deem morally questionable and does not condone discrimination against them. The letter follows the public release of a video showing a Vanderbilt professor telling staff that objecting to transgender medical care is problematic and should not be without consequences. In another video, a university medical center doctor detailed the financial incentives of transgender surgeries, raising concerns about harm to children, religious liberty, and financial incentives, and leading Tennessee's governor to call for an investigation into the clinic. Coming up, they've been waiting for 20 years to come home. Now they're finally getting that chance. Watch as Jews from around the world are returning to Israel and see who's helping to make it happen. Stay with us. Making Aliyah, thousands of Ethiopian Jews are joining their families in Israel. Some of them have been waiting as long as 20 years for their reunion. Others have been left behind indefinitely. Julie Stahl brings us their story from Gondar, Ethiopia.
When Wirki Germe and her siblings arrived at the airport in Tel Aviv, they had waited 19 years to be allowed to join their 86-year-old mother, Rabebo Shivesh, in Israel.
During the wait, we encountered all kinds of challenges. There were many grandchildren and great-grandchildren born, and she doesn't know them.
Normally, it takes weeks or months to immigrate to Israel, But bureaucratic challenges have forced most Ethiopians to wait for years. Still, they're glad to come.
We feel blessed that we can move to the land of Israel. It's a land that even Moses wasn't allowed to tread on.
Sadly, this family's story is not unique.
We're here in the synagogue in Gondar, Ethiopia. It's the only synagogue, and all the people you see behind me are waiting for permission to go to Israel. Some have been in the process for as many as 20 years.
Everyone here is from a village, and they moved here to the city to put in the request to make Aliyah. The minute you leave your village, you left your land and you don't have the possibility to return.
Adana Tadela leads the Jewish agency operations in Ethiopia. As a 16-year-old in the 80s, Tadele walked some 300 miles at night across these mountains to Sudan. After a year in Sudan, he was flown to Israel.
We opened here in 1992. Close to 85,000 Ethiopians immigrated from this place and were taken care of in this place. Now we're facilitating Aliyah for 3,000 immigrants.
The Jewish agency partners with Christian organizations like CBN to help resettle the immigrants and the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews that chartered the Aliyah flight to Israel.
I feel the words of the prophets coming to life, that 2,000 years ago, Jeremiah and Ezekiel, they saw this.
CEO Yael Eckstein says her organization helps bring around 5,000 Jews home each year.
And I think of my grandfather, who's a Holocaust survivor from Germany. And he opens up the Bible and says, one day the Jews will go home to Israel. One day Jews from all over the world will be reunited on the shoulders of the Gentiles, that it will be Christians who will make this happen.
According to the Israeli law of return, anyone with a Jewish grandparent who was not converted to another religion is allowed to become a citizen. It's called making Aliyah. Many Ethiopian Jews, however, have had trouble proving their lineage in order to qualify.
Part of them here don't qualify under the law of return. The majority are entering by a decision of the government that has new criteria every time. So each time, only a small amount can go.
That has left people like Leah Kabede waiting for more than 2 decades for seemingly no reason.
When I was 5 years old, my family brought me here to make Aliyah. My mother waited about 23 years to go to Israel.
Leah had to wait another year and a half after that because she's married. But finally, she and her husband were approved and came to Israel on the recent flight, together with their 3 small children and her sister and sister's family.
There is no question we're Jews, so we want to go to Israel because that is where we belong.
The origins of Ethiopian Jewry are unclear, but most believe they are part of the lost biblical tribe of Dan. Many also trace their lineage to the Queen of Sheba. The Bible says the queen went to visit King Solomon to hear his wisdom. Ethiopians say the queen bore Solomon's son, who then led a dynasty lasting thousands of years. Known as Beta Israel, in the 80s, Israel's chief rabbi declared them to be Jews. Later, others who had converted to Christianity under pressure, known as Falashmura, were also included. Since that time, the Israeli government has mounted various operations to bring Ethiopian Jewry and their descendants to Israel, often declaring it as the last round. Balauken Tegenye couldn't go with his parents to Israel because he was already married. Balauken lives in this one room with his wife and 3 daughters.
My grandfather made Aliyah to Israel 11 years ago. My parents and my brother went 2 years ago. My wife is very happy we are going, and she wants to raise our children as Jews.
Balauken and his family joined nearly 150 new immigrants who boarded the IFCJ-sponsored flight in Gondar and headed home. Dozens of Rabebo Shivesh's relatives were on the plane.
I'm very blessed to meet my children after so many years.
It's hard to describe in words. I feel like it's a dream. I'm very, very blessed.
At the airport, the new immigrants received their paperwork and from there were taken to absorption centers where they'll spend time learning Hebrew and studying Judaism, as well as have time to adjust to life in Israel.
Home is where heart is. So we came home, we're happy. Now everything feels okay, and dream come true.
Though it's unclear how many Jews remain in Ethiopia, the Jewish Agency and its Christian supporters stand ready to help fulfill God's word to bring his people back home. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Gondar, Ethiopia, and Tel Aviv.
Amazing story, and you can see more news from the Middle East on Jerusalem Dateline. That's tonight on the CBN News channel at 8:30 Eastern or watch anytime on the CBN News app. Still ahead, he spent 7 seasons in the big leagues, grinding out 162 games a season. Mets outfielder Brandon Nimmo shares what gives him joy playing baseball and makes him feel like a kid again. New York Mets outfielder Brandon Nimmo is known throughout the league for his patient eye and his ear-to-ear smile. Brandon says the key to winning isn't just being able to get on base, it's knowing how to sacrifice. Tom Buring brings us his story.
New York Mets center fielder Brandon Nimmo puts the team on his shoulders, setting the tone as their leadoff hitter. A tone with staccato, bringing burst and consistency. The Wyoming native approaches baseball like he does life, from great enthusiasm and even greater perspective.
Setting the tone as the leadoff hitter.
Yeah.
Kind of the first impression.
Yeah,
You're setting
is.
that, man. What might surprise us about being the offensive catalyst?
That there's sacrifice involved. I'm usually taking the first pitch or few pitches of the game in order to see how the pitcher is that day. We play each and every day, but the starting pitchers, they go every 5, and I'm going to take the first pitch of the game. And if he can throw it for a strike, well, okay, now I know that he's got his command, he's able to put it where he wants, and you do have to be willing to sacrifice that first at-bat in order to come up with a better plan for the team that day.
7 seasons now in the major league. The grind can't be avoided.
Yeah.
How do you still find wonder in the game?
I still find wonder in little moments where I was able to rob a home run in a really big situation and a bunch of emotion poured out of me. And I felt like a little kid out on the field again in front of 50,000 people, understanding just how blessed I am to be in this position. It helps me to play with enthusiasm, to have a lot of fun in this game. That thankfulness that I think really comes through, that's the joy that I think you see.
You come from a bull riding family. Is there any similar mindset between a bull rider and a baseball player?
I think there is. I think there's a similar mindset in my dad did it for a little bit. He told me that when you ride a bull, you're never really healthy. It's not really a matter of if you get hurt, it's when you get hurt. In baseball, you play 162 games. There is a similarity in the toughness that you have to bring. You're just not quite ever going to be 100% healthy when you go out there, and you have to figure out a way to lay it all out there with what you have.
So what does the man from Cheyenne like best about playing in New York?
I love how baseball in New York rings true to a lot of people, and it's interesting with how many people are here from different backgrounds, but when you come to Citi Field, loyal and energetic and as excited as you are, this is also the biggest stage. When you don't do well, it's not always hunky-dory, but man, when you come through, it's really special, and there's no better place to do it.
Well, like you said, it is the world's biggest stage.
Yes.
So then for you, Brandon, where does the greatest pressure come from?
The only pressure is what I put on myself. And unfortunately, that's too much most of the time. I think we all control that pressure that we seem to be feeling from the outside world, but sometimes that's hindering you from being your best self. Definitely put the hard work in and be prepared and do everything that I can in order to come through in those situations, but also be a little bit easier on myself. At the end of the day, I'm really the only one who's putting that pressure on myself.
Your demeanor and game both have a reputation, Brandon, of being consistent in a game of inconsistency. So where did you develop your poise and peace?
Baseball is a game of failure, so you're gonna have ups and downs. You're gonna be upset about your failures. This is how Jesus would want you to act, you know? How I just conduct myself on an everyday basis of trying to have more patience and be slow to anger. Learn from the Bible and what it teaches us. I think it helps deal with the failure of baseball in a much healthier way.
How practically does the Christ following strengthen your footing?
There was a moment back in 2016, this might be it for baseball. What might be next? And I remember my dad said, you know, Brandon, if God doesn't want this for you, then he's got something much better planned for you. When I finally really surrender to him in my heart, not just saying the words, but in my heart, say, okay, wherever this is going to go, it's up to you. Started to feel more peace about what I was doing. There's nothing that you're going to do that's going to hinder that. He's going to make a way for you.
Metaphorically speaking, let's put you in the leadoff role.
Yeah.
As a catalyst for the church at large. If you could set the tone for greater, genuine impact, what would it be?
I think it goes back to the unexpected part about leading off. It really comes down to sacrifice. For someone who is hurting, and you ask them how they're doing, or just listen, be an ear or a shoulder to lean on. Sometimes I find in this life, we're going so fast, we forget that we're placed on this earth in order to help each other. The ultimate sacrifice was Jesus dying on the cross for our sins. He made the greatest example by showing us that true love and true purpose down here is sacrifice. What did Jesus do in this situation, and how can I try and be better and be more like him? Those little moments can make the biggest impacts.
Coming up, see the NASA mission that is being hailed a smashing success. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Well, it's not an end-of-the-world movie, but it sure does sound like one. A NASA mission to redirect an asteroid away from Earth was a success. The mission, codenamed DART, which stands for Double Asteroid Redirection Test, NASA's Save the World spacecraft plowed into an asteroid about 7 million miles away, sending it clear out of Earth's orbit. NASA took the opportunity to praise the international accomplishment.
Now, this is a watershed moment for planetary defense and a watershed moment for humanity.
Planetary defense mission launched 2 weeks ago to see if a killer rock could be altered. And while this asteroid wasn't considered a threat, NASA's administrator says the mission shows that it's trying to prepare for whatever the universe throws at us. Thanks for watching this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We hope you'll join us next time.